Hello everyone, and thank you very much for joining today. We have a special evening, a special event today, kind of a workshop I have prepared for you to discuss something very important, troubleshooting, and I will make a comparison today between standard, traditional, let's say, approaches to troubleshooting Java applications and modern approaches, AI-based approaches. You have part of them also in my newly released book, but today I'm gonna discuss a little bit more in detail about some newer stuff that appeared meanwhile and that I have discovered actually very recently, and I have tried it and I think it's absolutely awesome, and that's what I'm gonna show you today. So I'm really eager to discuss it in this video, and thank you very much for being already here with me. I have a live chat here on my left side, and I'm gonna keep an eye on the live chat to see all the discussions and all the questions and everything you want to say, even if it's only hi. And by the way, thank you very much for being here. Remember, you can always come back here and join this channel, subscribe to it, tell your friends about it, because you're gonna find here a lot of juicy stuff about Java in general, as you already know, most of you, because I'm pretty sure you are already here with me. But let me share my screen, and this is the workshop I have prepared for you today. This is a scenario of an application designed for a horse riding school. So imagine this: you have been hired as a consultant, and there are 5 potential issues in this application that you need to debug, and you can debug them using traditional approaches, AI approaches. We will try everything we can today. This is basically what our customer says. So she is Clara. Clara is the owner of this riding school. She has been provided with this solution, which she totally hates because it's not appropriate with the requirements. So she hired you to help her with finding out where the problems are and solve them. We are not going to solve the problems here in this live event, but we are going to try to find out which are the appropriate ways to discover them in code. And I'm going to talk about the traditional approach. You will see in some cases there are easier, in some cases it's more difficult to find them out. And then we will try some new tool which is named Debug Zero. This is an AI assistant particularly trained for debugging. And when I say debugging, I actually mean troubleshooting, because I've tried it, and that's what I'm gonna show you today in this example. I've tried it not only with debugging, like, you know, theoretically by debugging we understand putting a breakpoint, going through, reading the code, identifying some, I don't know, condition. It can do that, but it can actually identify things that naturally you would only be able to identify, for example, with profiling and more advanced solutions in real world scenarios. And that's what I have prepared here for you. So this is absolutely excellent. It's free, by the way, so I recommend you try it. It's an IntelliJ plugin. It works with anything JetBrains, I think. I have used it also with WebStorm, yeah, with actually a real world project that I'm gonna show you if I can at the end. Also, I think yesterday I've seen the news, they have released also for Visual Studio Code, so you can basically install it in the majority of the IDEs Java developers use today. So it's pretty much of a thing. But back to it later. I will also compare it with other tools, like for example the difference between using Juni and using Debug Zero, okay? Because maybe you wonder, hey, we have also other tools out there, does it make any difference? And I have tested or at least I've tested the difference between Juni and debug 0, and the results were different in terms of the purpose. No, depends on what exactly you want. So if I wanted debugging, debug 0 was more in depth, always went quicker to the solution, the real cause, root cause. If I want development, however, Juni is made for that. It's an excellent tool. I've always liked to use it. So thank you very much for joining me. I see so many messages already, so I keep an eye on the live chat. Does it require an account? Yes, but it's like really quick. I've just logged in with my, I think with Google or with GitHub you can. I've logged in with Google. So it's straightforward to log in with it, and again it's free. You just install it, restart the IDE, try it with your examples. You will see it's basically awesome. Okay, back to our example. So we have 5 problems Clara reports, and they go through different ways. I've designed this workshop such in a way in which it drives us through different issues that are usually resolved with different approaches to have them the quickest way. And all these approaches, by the way, they are in my Troubleshooting Java here. So if you didn't have the chance to at least go quick through the book, you can find it on O'Reilly Learning, you can find it on Amazon. I'm pretty sure you can find it online as well, but I didn't say that. But anyway, regardless of the way you get it, look through it, read it, you will definitely have at least one thing to learn out of it. I'm pretty sure. Of course, it depends on your seniority, because if you are already an expert in Java, you might know all of those already. But I write my books to help as much as possible everyone, and I'm pretty sure that it's more helpful for beginner to intermediate developers rather than advanced developers, where you probably already know debugging, profiling, SQL queries, heap dumps, thread dumps, and everything else that is presented in the book. So look, when I code, this is what Clara says. When I code prices for new riders who only want a handful of lessons, the total looks a bit off. Sometimes there is a small discount that shouldn't be there. Normally, only advanced riders should have a discount, and only for a larger number of lessons ordered. So this is what Clara claims as our first problem. It seems that there is some discounting functionality, and then this doesn't really look all right, because it seems that the totals look off. Sometimes there is a small discount where it shouldn't be, and only advanced riders should have a discount, and only for a larger number of lessons. What you actually do as a developer is you go through the code, try to find out where that is. No, you might assume it's probably this price controller, no, because it sounds like something related to prices, and then you go through the code. Oh, I'm on my Mac, sorry. You go through the code and you try to find out the logic, and you read the logic. Sometimes you might be able to find out the problem by reading the logic. Hey, lessons smaller than 10, rider level, beginner. It sounds like the opposite of what Clara said. In other situations, you can't really get it out of the box immediately. So you just see, hey, this is the calculate price. This is where the discount is applied. I'm going to put a breakpoint here. I'm going to start the IDE in debug mode. Then I'm going to call the endpoint. No, this is the endpoint. By the way, I have already prepared the endpoint, so we don't lose time with reading with that. And then you call it and say, hey, I have level beginner. I have ordered less than 10 lessons, so it's small amount. We can consider this a small amount, but I do see a discount here. So it looks like the problem Clara talks about really reproduces. No. Now, good. this is the way you solve simple problems like this one. I'm pretty sure that the majority of you have went through that. What I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna go back to my README and I'm gonna take exactly what Clara said. Sometimes it doesn't work with AI, you know, it's not always 100% accurate. But in many cases, the debug 0 surprised me with this. I didn't tell it a tiny bit of a technicality. I have directly used simple words like a non-technical person to find out what's wrong. I have just told debug 0 exactly what this owner who has nothing to do with programming told. And I just put it here. Oh, this Mac really kills me because I don't know the shortcuts. 1 second. I'm gonna just take it and put it there and see what happens. So, of course, I could have added something like what is the problem, but I guess it's debug 0. It's designed for that. It's trained particularly for that, and we'll try to find out what the problem is in this code. And again, the surprising thing is I have provided a very non-technical requirement, very non-technical. No, it's like I'm the user, something doesn't work, I describe what it doesn't work. I know nothing about price service Java, I know nothing about price controller, endpoints, Bruno, requests, responses, HTTP, properties, and look, it goes basically exactly through the way you, a developer, would go. If you have observed, no, let's go a little bit up before reading the codes. It doesn't keep the history, but you might have actually seen, no, while I was talking, it went through the whole path, tried to find where discounts are calculated exactly as I did, no, exactly as I did earlier with that, what I call traditional approach. I tried to find the controller, I found the controller that sounds like this might be it, then I found the service, then I found the logic, then I decided to read the code or to add a breakpoint, and then it discovered exactly the root cause. So exactly what I was telling you earlier. The perfect description here, you can see it described naturally. So what you do now, you can solve it as a developer, but if you are vibe coding, of course, which I don't recommend all the times, no, you can actually provide this response to Junie and say, hey Junie, I have this problem, can you solve it for me please? And then Junie will say, yes, of course I can solve it for you. But look, this was exactly, no, you can see how in detail, no, it's trained particularly for this purpose. I started to like a lot the AI agents and assistants in general that are trained for a particular thing. You see, when you go to something like very broad like ChatGPT and try to use it for whatever, and theoretically it can answer to anything, it does, but it's not this detailed. No, you can see how quick it actually found this problem. Good, let's go to something more complicated than this, because this was only debugging. No, so I'm gonna go to the second one, and then, well, my stuff lists upcoming lessons. Clara says the pages don't look stable. This, from a developer with experience, sounds not like a really easy thing to troubleshoot, because it sounds like a potential performance problem. And performance problems, they can be easy to spot, or they can be very, very difficult to spot. I remember many years ago, I had to like fly to Denmark to figure out what the problem or what the performance problem really was on site, because it was something that nobody could have identified remotely. So trust me, they can be very easy, but they can be like incredibly difficult to spot. Okay, then I will try it myself. Okay, I'm before using debug 0, what is the usual approach to figure out when you feel it's something like performance problem? What is the approach traditionally you go to? So you say if you include booking details, we sometimes see duplicate lessons, something with the persistence layer maybe on the page and then missing one on the next page. Scrolling back changes what you see, which confuses the users, the instructors being the users probably. So Clara tells us, first of all, the page doesn't look stable, and it's something wrong with that table. In my experience, when you have a table with Angular, React, something like that, if the endpoint is very slow, sometimes it creates like that fuzziness of the page. So the problem could actually be a performance, and these duplicate lessons can tell us it's something related to that. Then of course I would probably take the standard approach. I'm gonna figure out where the lessons are displayed. I do find a controller called lesson query controller, so I can assume maybe this is actually the endpoint that Clara was referring to. Clara doesn't know about endpoints, but we know that it should probably be an endpoint now, and we find it. And she was actually mentioning about booking details. Now we include booking details, and then you can see it here. It has an include booking parameter, which again supports the cause that this actually is likely to be the endpoint. No, so then I'm gonna look through it, and I don't really figure out too much. I see that when it includes bookings, it adds one more condition here to get the bookings, but it's not really clear for me what the problem is. So it takes the page from the lessons using find all with pageable. This is not wrong. Find all would be wrong, but find all with pageable, not necessarily wrong, no, because it's pageable, you still get a small amount. So in the end, behind the scenes, it will get a where condition. So it's not like it gets all the possible records from the database. So it might be, it might not be a problem. What do we do in this case? Well, what I prefer to do in such cases is jump into profiling, and I can assume it's something probably wrong with the persistent layer, because she was talking about duplicates and stuff like that. So what I can do in that case is I can go, okay, you will apologize me for that. I was actually preparing it before, so I'm gonna clean the collected data somehow here. Anyway, maybe if I start it again. Okay, and then I'm gonna click the JDBC button. No, oh, by the way, sorry, before clicking it, when profiling, always, but always refrain the research to exactly the packages or even classes sometimes that you suspect. Don't put everything, don't try to profile the whole project. Maybe in my case here, because it's a very small demonstrative project, it would work, but in a real world scenario it will almost never be a good idea. Okay, so what I'm doing usually, and that's what I'm also telling you in this book, Troubleshooting Java, is that you always should sample first before profiling. No, I'm now going straight to profiling because I kind of already know what the problem is, and I cannot, like, during this hour, like, I cannot stay here with you 4 hours to debug all this. Imagine that any developer, I'm now kind of explain what the problem is, but I'm jumping over things like this. It would take maybe even hours to get them right, and that's where exactly where I want you to understand the power of using the new techniques, so augmenting the traditional techniques with new techniques. Really, now, traditional techniques are still useful, and you cannot 100% trust an AI assistant regardless what is your AI assistant, but I will show you how much of a deal breaker this is if you know how to use it. See, so in my case here, what I've done, I've started the JDBC debugging, and then I'm gonna call that endpoint that creates the issues. I'm sure that I'm including the bookings because Clara suspects that the problem is, no, that's what she said, it's only when including the details about the bookings is that it becomes like that. And then I'm going back to my profiler and look what happened here. I see a lot of queries. What does that mean? What, keep this in mind. When you click on a button, call a feature, call an endpoint, and then in your profiler you see a lot of queries, particularly looking similar to one another, this is 99% an n+1 query problem. What is an n+1 query problem? It's a problem where because of probably misplaced configuration or wrongly written code logic at the persistence layer, the application sends a query to grab some records and then iterates over that collection of records trying to grab some other details. In our case, most likely it takes the lessons, iterates over the lessons, and then you can see status from bookings here. If I enlarge the row, it tries to get the bookings for each lesson. This is where the problem that Clara observes come from, and that's basically why it's happening. Now what I'm gonna do, so we discovered it with the traditional approach, agree? Let's see if debug 0, my favorite AI assistant for debugging, knows what to do in this case. I'm simply just gonna copy, sorry, it was the wrong one. I'm simply just gonna copy paste what Clara says here and see if it gets me to at least a probability of the result. Maybe give me at least the starting point, no? Because remember, I don't expect always that the AI assistants will just directly give me the exact answer, but in many cases they just at least give you an idea. And it happened to me that they gave me an idea and it was not the right one, but then it was not a bad idea, it could have been, and I just replied back, hey, this is not really what happens here because I see something different, can you look again? And then the second time it actually came with a very good explanation, which happened to really be the real root cause. So it's still analyzing, but look, it's already confirmed n+1 query problem. Incredible. And the reason this is incredible for me is because, again, I just went with what Clara said, who Clara, she's non-technical. No, in this requirement, in this prompt, which is, by the way, anyway small enough, I haven't used any term like controller, endpoint, query, SQL query, hibernate, nothing that only a developer or a technical person would know. It's exactly what I assume came by mail from Clara, and I'm just consulting her and trying to find out. I just placed exactly her code from the email from a non-technical person, and debug 0 in just a few seconds. Honestly, it was just a few seconds. So it was like 21:41, 22:35, in less than a minute. In less than a minute, it discovered the n+1 query problem, and it comes with an excellent explanation to exactly where the n+1 query problem comes from. Now, Debug 0 is again not for solving your problems, it's for debugging them. But then you can still either solve it yourself or use another agent, such as, for example, Juni, who is designed for changing the code. But again, extraordinary. So how long of a time did it take us? And trust me, it's funny because even this time, which is like longer, it would have been much longer, trust me, in reality. Now I'm showing you basically already knowing what the problem is because I have designed the exercise, no? So imagine that if this was a real debugging session where I didn't know what the problem is, it would have taken me a lot more time to find out where the endpoint is, figure out that maybe I need to use a profiler, and then again, normally, and that's what I'm also describing in my book, normally I never use a profiler directly. I always start with sampling when I suspect when I suspect a performance problem. And why do I do that? Because profiling is very expensive. Before profiling, I always have to enumerate the packages or even classes that I suspect to have the problem, which in my case maybe it works with the base package here, but in a real world project it might not. So if I'm going to the sampler, I'm sampling the CPU first. That's what I'm doing. No, I'm reproducing the problem. I'm then searching through the all of the threads here, try to figure out which of the threads accepted my endpoint. No, and I'm not gonna do that now wholly, but you just understand the idea. No, so it takes a lot of time. No, because I figure out then. I'm identifying the thread, I'm figuring out which is basically potentially the problem, which takes long, then I'm stopping the sampling, I'm going to profiling, I'm configuring, I'm preparing my profiling, I repeat the profiling session, and then I identify the n+1 query problem. So a lot of work comparing to, at least, imagine even if debug 0 didn't actually give me the right answer from the beginning, but it just, let's say it gave me an idea, it was still good, but it literally gave me the solution. So excellent. I love it. That's why I wanted to share it with you, because I'm really impressed about it, more impressed than any other agent I have used. Let's try the third one. No, the third one. So we have five problems in total. We have already solved 2 of them. We've struggled with the traditional approaches for the first 2. It took us a lot of time. It took us maybe only a couple of minutes for debug 0 to identify the problems. And now let's see the third one. Are we able to find out what the problem is with the third one? So parents are trying to upload their kids' rider photos. Okay, so it has some kind of an upload functionality. Good enough. Some images upload fine, others, especially bigger picture, fail randomly. When I hear randomly, I start having goosebumps, because I had so many issues. When I hear randomly, it usually means something like a thread related problem, maybe sometimes a memory issue. Since it's about uploading pictures and Clara tells us it's bigger pictures that usually do that, I might suspect something memory related as an experienced developer. But then I still have to find out where it is. I find the controller called avatar controller. I can suspect this is where the problem is. And then again, I investigate it. Maybe I can get what happens through the code, maybe not, I have no idea. But what I can do, if I really want, is basically to try to figure out if it's a memory related problem. Now, as an experienced developer, but again, as an experienced developer, no, I would basically read the code, and personally I do identify very quickly such an issue, because you can see that first of all, an entire collection of bytes of a file is read in memory. So this already triggers me an idea of a memory related problem. And then I can see something even more fishy here. So this gets then into a cache, which cache I'm then go and investigate. It looks to be like something like a singleton, no? So it looks like it stays there forever. No, I don't even see. I see a get, I see an info, I see a size, and I see a put method, but I do not see any delete method. So in my mind, this already triggers the idea of a memory leak. Now, what is a memory leak? Is when some memory is allocated but never deallocated, then the garbage collector will not be able to deallocate it because the references are always there. So this is kind of a wrongly implemented cache. If I really want to demonstrate this, however, I would probably first of all make a very small heap memory allocated to this process, and then as any valuable developer, I would actually try to reproduce the problem, maybe adding a lot of pictures here, and then maybe you know what I need to do next. I need to go to, well, here I can try the monitoring. It still looks like a good memory allocation. Here you can see it's where I did the upload, okay? But it looks like this because I also have a lot of memory, so I didn't refrain the memory. Normally when you keep in mind, when you try to identify a memory leak and you try to do it on local, you always have to use the XMX and XMS properties to make your memory as small as possible. And then of course you have two options. You either use a heap dump, which you can generate directly like this to see what's in the memory. This is always a good option. You can take it anywhere. You can see a big amount of bytes, and this actually makes it even more difficult to estimate because bytes can be anything. So you see, this problem is a particularly not really simple one. Also from the point of view that I'm using arrays of bytes, which is an array of primitives, which might be generated by other stuff as well. So in the end, I would basically still figure out what this is most likely. No, I would go through the bytes. I would probably see that at some point this is a file that got stored in a hash map somewhere, and then I would identify that and I would find out this is actually most likely the cache, no? So I would be able to demonstrate it. And then of course, besides the heap dump, sampling on memory and sampling on execution would basically give you an over the time approach, no? So I could now, I'm sampling over the memory. I'm always, when I'm doing that, I'm putting it descending by the amount of bytes and sometimes by the live objects, depending on what I suspect. And then I try to reproduce the problem, and then I see how exactly that object that causes the problem grows in size, which in my case will be the arrays of bytes will start to grow and grow in size. Being that I'm uploading files, I would basically link all these like Sherlock Holmes, and I would identify this again as being probably a memory leak, and then of course that would give me everything I need. Good. So quite some time, no, it wasn't easy. Even an experienced developer would not necessarily easily find this out. So I'm pretty curious what happens when I'm gonna feed this to debug 0. So again, I'm gonna feed the non-technical statement. And what I want to also highlight here is that imagine if non-technical stuff is identified such in a good way. You as a developer who would probably feed also some technicalities would make this even more accurate. So if debug 0 can actually act as a debugger, as a person that not only debugs but also tries to figure out what a simple client description wants to say and finds the problem, then using it as a developer, it's even a lot more efficient. And look, take a look on over what it's doing here. It's already somehow figuring out that the cache is the problem. Okay, so it's kind of figuring out already where the problem comes from, and I'm pretty sure that by the end, which will probably be less than a minute again, it will actually find out the real root cause of the problem, which is absolutely excellent. For an AI assistant, for a tool, this is something that we never had before. It's like it takes a little bit more than the other, but also the problem, I think might be a little bit more complicated, no? And caused by an unbounded in-memory cache that stores entire image files as byte arrays without any size limits, cleanup mechanism, or error handling, leading to out-of-memory errors and random failures when memory is exhausted. And then it gives you the full details and it tells you exactly where the problem is. We already know because we have already investigated it ourselves. But again, it took like less than a minute, no? Again, less than a minute. No, I'm sorry, 35:25, less than 2 minutes or something like that. No, it's still a very, very quick time to investigate a whole code base. Yeah, you will say it's not a large application, it only designs 5 endpoints. But even if it were larger than this, imagine maybe if it's on a monolithic application, maybe it take longer. I will try it. I didn't have the chance. But on microservices, which are by definition smaller, then we can expect it works the same way, you know? Okay, let's go to the fourth and use. See, Clara tells us we use credit balances for families. Occasionally, we transfer credit from one rider to another. Lately, transfers say they succeed, but later the numbers don't add up. So somehow it looks like there is a problem, an inconsistency problem. This can have so many causes, no? So again, the only thing I would do from a traditional approach would be to try to find out where that actually is. Fortunately for me, the classes seem to be like at least good enough named, so I can see that is a credit transfer controller, and then I can try to find out this is the transfer, and then I see already something fishy here. So I see some locks here, and this looks like interesting. Why would you actually do that? No. So okay, good. You see some locks. That's not necessarily a problem. You look at the whole thing. It's transactional. So being transactional, it wouldn't need to cause a problem the fact that any of the operations fail, no? Because if the operations would fail, well, in that case it will completely roll back, so there shouldn't be any inconsistency because of that. So the only thing that looks suspicious here is these locks and the sleep that it's used here. So this looks suspicious enough. I don't understand why this code has been written like that, but I'm pretty sure this might actually cause deadlocks. Whenever I see locks, and particularly nested locks like this one, I usually, as an experienced developer, I'm triggered to believe this can be a lock problem. And then you know what the lock problem, how it is investigated. Well, it is investigated also using a profiler, and then you can use first of all the sampling, you can use the profiling, and fortunately profiling can be actually done particularly for locks, so you can figure out if there is any lock, which are the locks, and if potentially they create a deadlock. Now, what I did for this example when I actually work with it in the class is I created a different method here called stress. And this stress method, what it does is sends a lot of requests, so that it basically triggers in the end that deadlock that happens. No, so what I did, and what I would do in a real world scenario, I would actually try to use JMeter or some similar tool, or even create something of my own quickly, some script, some whatever, to trigger these many times, no, like I did here. And then you can actually do that. So with transfer, I don't think if you call the transfer and that's it will work, but if you call the stress, so and this is it. Look, this is it. Already Visual VM detected that a deadlock appeared. Visual VM, like the majority of the profiling tools, are very smart today, so they instantaneously detect deadlocks, and they tell you where the deadlocks are. And then of course you can get a thread dump, and you can investigate the thread dump. It's something that we cannot go in details now, but you can find it, a full chapter of thread dumps and investigating logs here in Troubleshooting Java. Well, this is the problem clearly. Now, we discovered it using traditional approaches. The question stays the same. Would an AI tool such as Debug Zero be able to find this? Because it like really looks pretty difficult, no? So I'm gonna do exactly what I did for all the others. I'm gonna take what Clara sent me by email, and I'm gonna feed it into Debug Zero, hoping that it will at least give me some idea of what's going on. So it creates the debug plan, blah 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 blah. Let's see. It went at least correctly to the transfer. No, the transfer page. Good. I'm really curious what it discovers here. Really curious. It says that's a missing save operation. So the create transfer report success but fails to persist balance because the repository doesn't. Oh, here is an example where finally we found an example where it didn't actually get it from the very beginning, know the problem. So what actually Debug Zero tells me is that it believes the problem is that the transfer method doesn't use any save. But then I'm gonna go, and as an experienced developer I would actually go through the method and try to understand exactly what my AI tries to tell me. And then but Spring JV doesn't automatically flash. Why? why it doesn't automatically flush. I would actually expect. So let me actually feed one more message, and I would say, but Hibernate always merges the context at the end of the transaction. In this case, only updating the entities should be necessary. I don't think the missing save is the problem. So let's see if okay, I'm right about Hibernate's behavior. Yeah, I know. I know I'm right. I'm always right about Spring Java in general. So no joking. I'm always doing a lot of mistakes. So don't take my words. I was just trying to make fun of it. And let's see if it takes. Now it goes into locks. So at this moment, it looks like after the second try, it looks like it's on the right track. So you see, friends, this is what I'm telling you about AI and AI assistants in general. You do not necessarily need to trust them from the very beginning. But today, out of the 4 things we have investigated, 3 of them were from the very beginning, like discovered the right way. And now the 4th, actually debug 0 went into deadlocks. So even this, like, even if it's the second try, it's still like really good, no? It's identifying it very quickly. So someone says, but usually lock-unlock mechanism resides in low-level dependencies. Is debug 0 capable of going through those, or does it read through source code? Very good question, actually. I believe that it goes through the source code it knows and it has. So for example, if you have that dependency source code because it's an open source, it will go through it because it has it. But if it has to decompile it, I doubt that debug 0 does that. So what it could happen in that case is that it's likely it might figure out what dependency poses the problem, but not necessarily be able to tell you what exactly from that dependency creates the problem. No? But I will try it more and I will tell you about that as well. Because for the moment, like, it really impressed me, so I'm pretty sure it might have good chances to impress me as well with that one. Good. The last one, I'm gonna quickly just do it the other way around. I'm gonna ask debug 0 to help me, and then I will see if indeed it is right. So let's see. Search is moody. Sometimes it ignores obvious matches unless we type the name just right, and other times it takes too long to respond during busy hours. My stuff ends up guessing instead of searching. Good. Let's just do it the other way around now. No, I'm gonna feed this and I'm gonna see if what debug 0 tells me it's at least close to what might actually be the problem. Insights is critical read-DOS vulnerability. So for those of you who don't know what a read-DOS is, it's a regex denial of service. And the regex denial of service is caused by an wrongly used regex that sometimes pose issues especially performance issues, because it like needs to iterate a lot for certain values. And I will be the spoiler because we don't have too much time, but redos really is the cause of this problem. So debug 0 again identified the problem from the very beginning. If you read the details, it will tell you exactly what the problem is. So somewhere in the search here, we are using a regex, this input sanitizer, which because of this plus here, actually, it creates a redos problem. So again, very quickly identified problem by debug 0. I'm now using debug 0 together with Juni. Debug 0 for debugging because it's a lot faster by any other tool for this that I have ever seen. And then Juni for solving the problems and implementing new features. I love using AI. Of course, I'm not vibe coding in general. I'm doing what I call AI first. I'm trying to always review what the AI does for me, what AI tells me. And in the end, I want to end up with what I know it's quality code, performant code, and I do recommend you do the same. But I sometimes I did some vibe coding as well, because I needed, for example, to implement stuff with technologies that I don't know. Well, it was like more stuff done for me rather than stuff done for a client. I would not like rely on vibe coding for a client. But for example, I had a friend, and I need to help her with a website. And I had to design this nicely website with Angular and PHP. And the point is, I have not too much knowledge on either PHP or Angular. So what I did is I implemented it with Juni, and now I can actually try to use debug 0, for example, to find any issues. Oh, and one thing that I didn't say is that, hey, you can actually write in any language. No, I've started already not only using sometimes only English for when working with my AI assistants, because sometimes it was like simply just easier to put the things in my language. So you can use actually any language you want. No, I can use Spanish if I want. No. For example, and sorry for my Spanish, it's not like perfect, but basically you will it should understand what I want, because it's AI. So even if I make mistakes, even any language, if they are not like too big mistakes, then it will basically understand what I want, and it will try to figure out here what the problems are. So this would be a project that I designed 99.99% with AI, and then debugged it with AI, and then corrected it with AI as well. So this is basically how it works. And by the way, this is actually WebStorm, because I was telling you that you can basically use debug 0 with anything JetBrains. And yesterday I said I've heard the news that they actually released the plugin for VS Code as well. So I would say, hey, yeah, you can actually use whatever you want. Okay, so one more question. Did you also try GitHub Copilot comparing to Juni? I have tried, yes, Copilot, and I don't say that is not good, but somehow I feel that Juni, maybe because it's like designed by JetBrains, it integrates better with JetBrains IDEs, That was my feeling. So I'm kind of now stuck with Juni, and I like it pretty much. But I really don't want to say that one agent is better than the other, simply from the simple fact that I didn't have like the chance to really try it. No. So friends, this was today's presentation, and I really hope you enjoyed it. I really enjoyed a lot trying these things, and you've seen how much fun they are and how much helpful they actually are. I do invite you actually try it yourself. No, unlike other tools, Debug Zero, it's actually free, so you can, yeah, you don't need to think about the tokens and how much you spend and stuff like that. Try it, see if it works for you. Be careful with it in business. Incorporate projects, make sure that you can use it, but at least with your own projects, I would say, hey, do that, try it, see if it helps you, and I'm pretty sure that it will actually augment a lot your debugging experience. With that being said, thank you very much for being here with me again. I'm waving goodbye and see you next time. Until then, have an excellent time for debugging, AI debugging, writing code, and having fun. Cheers, everyone.